Inshallah, we'll get started in a second once the live stream starts. We're good.
To be clear, if you're a new face, we like you.
Yeah, we still like you. Not as much as the others. But yes.
Yeah, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ومن آياته أن خلق لكم من أنفسكم أزواجا لتسكنوا إليها وجعل بينكم مودة ورحمة إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون صدق الله العظيم. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من استطاع منكم الباءة فليتزوج أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Before beginning, I just wanted to acknowledge just a deep appreciation that we both have for a lot of the attendees who've been coming and sacrificing the weekends several weeks in a row. This is usually just, especially in Ramadan, Saturday mornings, Saturday afternoons tend to be like catch-up time from being up at night and the whole kind of Ramadan vibe. But y'all make the effort to come. May Allah reward all of you and bless all of you and allow these sessions to be a benefit to everyone who attends. Not just in person, we have a number of people who tune in weekly on the live streams as well. And the other thing I wanted to kind of acknowledge, at the expense, this may embarrass her, but I really don't care. Sister Lama is an extremely busy person, and she has a lot of community engagements. Pretty much, whenever she comes, she's always running, like from a program or to a program or from an appointment or to a commitment. And the fact that she's been so gracious with her time is something that I personally am very, very grateful for. And inshallah, if y'all could remember her and her family in your du'as, that would be really greatly appreciated. So today we have a lot to cover, so let's just kind of get to it. I'm going to hand it over to Sister Lama to summarize kind of what we've been talking about in the past. And then we have some exciting stuff to share with you today, inshallah.
Yeah. All right, assalamu alaikum everyone. So I also just want to add, it's actually an honor to teach with you because I really find imams who are in the process with the community knowing what they're going through. So it's good to see it from the Islamic perspective, what you're going through, and so that's why I'm excited to teach this class. But I'm going to give a summary about what we covered from the beginning to the end, from till the last class. So the first thing we talked about was this most important step is cleaning up your story of who you think you are and cleaning up the story of what you think the process is like. So we're surrounded in a society, community that I think is a bit of a crisis of what we think of the dating process or how the process of getting to know us, to find a spouse. There's a lot of thoughts about like scarcity, it's not enough, there's no one out there for me. All of that will have a huge impact on how you show up. So the first step is cleaning up that story, cleaning up all of that to be more intentional with how you think about it. And the way we did that is you write out what you think right now and transition it to something that's more realistic and healthy, and we talked more about that last time. All right, second step is figuring out what you want and what you don't want. So figuring out what you want and creating a want circle of your needs and wants. And this includes how do you make your single life right now and make it the best possible life you can have with the current wants that you have, with your current circle and network. And then when it comes to figuring out what you want in a spouse and what you don't want, you have a clear list of deal breakers, clear list of what must-haves, what your must-haves are. Okay? And then I also talked a little bit about what do you want your relationship to look like. So the way to build up what you want your relationship to look like, it helps to get inspired by healthy marriages that you see around you, and just noticing, I like how they have this thing between them. I like how they don't argue in an aggressive way. They argue in a very calm, civilized way. They still call each other idiots, but in a calm, civilized way, right? So I like that. So something to keep note of. How can I become that person where, that I can have that? And so you're kind of, as you're observing the people around you, as you talk to people, you start creating an image of what you would like your marriage to look like. And that's something that's part of your wants.
This point is really fascinating. I remember when I first started serving as an imam, there was an older student who was a couple of years older than me, whose work ethic, whose perspective I really admired. So I invited them one time for a khutbah, and as usual, he like blew it out, like just out of the park. Like he was amazing. The entire community was like, oh my God, how come this guy's not our imam? And I'm like starting to get really super jealous. I'm like, what does he have that I don't have? Right? But so I invited them again for like an evening program and stuff. And what he told me like really shocked me at the time, because the only thing I knew about him was that he was a dedicated student of knowledge. He was committed to like being at the masjid, teaching people. I was like, yeah, come Thursday night, we have a halaqah. And he goes, absolutely not. And I was like, okay, wasn't expecting that. But then he told me why. He goes, it's date night. Every Thursday is date night. I don't miss it for the world. I don't care what's going on. I don't care how important it is. Like, date night is every Thursday, rain or shine. And I just found that to be super, like, and from that moment, I incorporated that into my own marriage. Like,
That's beautiful.
so we go on the rule of ones. Like, once a day we connect. No matter how busy the day was, we spend like 20 minutes, 30 minutes connecting, phones away, babies asleep, just me and my wife. Once a week, we do something like nice. Once a month, something extra special. And once a year, a memorable thing. Like, a huge trip. So, and it was mainly inspired by that conversation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a great example of like, if we look at what's behind, how do you be someone that absolutely no matter what commits to date night every Thursday, is someone who prioritizes their the relationships, or someone who what you just have to look at what their character is like, and is it someone that is willing to give up other things for the sake of the relationship, for example, right? So yeah, we talked more about what you're looking for, what you want, and then we talked a little bit about rejection. What happens when you try to approach someone and they say no to you, or you're talking for a bit and they say no to you. Your brain is designed to take it personal. It's designed to make it mean something is wrong with you. And so if we just have the awareness of like, okay, we know that the no is not what the painful part is, it's just the thought about what you make it mean about yourself is the painful part. So the thoughts like, oh, something's wrong with me, like if I was perfect, why would they reject me? Clearly there's something wrong with me. Versus just actually making it mean like, oh yeah, they just don't find you as their person, and that's okay. You're not going to be liked by everyone, and our brain wants to be liked by everyone, and then it makes it a problem if someone doesn't like us. So it's just good to know that we have this. This is how our brain is wired. Rejection is can be hard, and it's only hard when you start learning more about yourself, you start. You can decide ahead of time. You know that your brain's going to make it mean this, and you just decide, oh, actually, if I get rejected, it means Allah is leading out this person for me. And that becomes your default now, every time you hear a no. So it's good to practice that. And part of when I was in this process, really getting to know, like understanding myself, I would set little small goals for myself. Like, okay, I know I have this really bad reaction every time I get rejected. I want to become someone where rejection doesn't break me. I want to become someone where rejection is like, it's not that big of a deal. So this helps with you can practice it now, right? Wherever you feel rejected, it helps to just practice that. Okay, so now there's that, and now we get into, all right, let's say you match with someone, everything looks good, then we talked about the 90-day plan. And today I'm gonna dive deeper into what this 90-day phase looks like. Okay. All right, so during these 90 days, so let's say you match with someone, and the first thing you have to do to be both of you on the same page is having the intention of making sure both of you are on the same page by having the conversation. So how that looks like, right? You can the container of the 90 days is making sure there is a plan. There's always a plan. Okay, listen, I like you. I think we're on the same page here. I've heard this idea from this really cool imam and this silly life coach that we should do this 90-day plan thing, right? What are your thoughts on that? And kind of opening it up like this is how it should be, because the benefit is so we don't waste each other's time, and also taking the time to really invest in understanding what we need to do to make a decision. All right, so we have that conversation. Any thoughts or questions on that so far? Actually, let me just get some. Yes, please.
On the 90-day period, is that a period where it's just you and them talking, or is that also a time to
So great question. It really depends on how comfortable you feel. I say, if you feel comfortable, just introduce them right away. I would involve the parents as soon as possible, right? I would involve them as soon as you start this 90-day period. And yeah, it's different for everyone, but I would recommend just right away, the 90 days. Okay. So once this 90-day situation starts, both of you are like, okay, both of you like each other, everything looks good. What I want to brush up on, or kind of bring up, is infatuation is the first thing that comes up. Okay? What happens here is your brain goes into this mode of I have found the one, and it goes into cloud 9. It's it feels like Jannah. It feels like I have found my person, and you can't stop sleeping. You can't sleep. You can't, you're always constantly thinking about them. You can barely work. All this is going to come up, especially in the first 2 weeks of this kind of you really getting to know each other. So it's inevitable, but we have to plan around it to make sure we ground ourselves. If we're all in Jannah, we have to come back to dunya and see, okay, they're just a human being. Because if we don't, then we start making decisions from a place of infatuation, and we miss a lot of flags that we could have seen if we just grounded ourselves a bit. Okay? So, what infatuation is typically thoughts of she's the one or he's the one, and then your brain starts looking only at the positive stuff. And it's kind of you put them on a pedestal. So how do you ground yourself is you purposely make a list of all the flaws. What do you see that you're kind of brushing off, even if it's not a big deal, but just make a list of the flaws. I'm noticing all these good things, what am I not noticing? And this is especially important, especially during this period, right, the infatuation part. Later on, when you get married, you kind of need to focus more on the positive rather than the negative, but infatuation is more on to ground yourself, you have to remember they're just a human being. Right? So when you notice that, first step is, I'm infatuated. Here's all the list of all the things of what's not good about them and how we could potentially not be a match. Okay? Just for awareness. And it helps when you're infatuated to not spend too much time with the person. Intentionally make your life busy to distract yourself with other things so that you're not completely spending all your time on this person. So what that looks like is, let's say you're planning to spend time with them for 2 hours at from 5 o'clock to 6 o'clock, then intentionally plan a meeting with your friends afterwards so that you don't go more than that. You have to put up a safeguard for yourself. So because the nafs will it feels exciting, it feels fun, it wants to go on forever. It will not end. And when we don't have it, we don't protect ourselves from that, it leads to things that you didn't think you'd get here. And no matter how strong you are, I don't care how pious you are, it will get to you. The infatuation is very strong, subhanAllah. Thoughts on that?
You said it perfectly.
Okay. But I'm saying, you notice people in infatuation
all the
phase,
time,
right? Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
It's a human thing, right? You start thinking of the person as it happens in the beginning of marriage as well, right? I love the way he chooses cereal in the morning, and when she sneezes and the boogers come out, they're just so magical. Everything's great. And it's important not to make life decisions based on these sort of emotions and, like you said, infatuation.
Yeah.
But come from a place of true knowledge. We'll talk more about it, but I think the most practical way to make sure that you don't do it this way is actually the 90-day period, right? Let's put a clock on when a decision needs to be made. That really helps.
Yeah, and you mentioned infatuation during marriage, which is not a big deal. That's good. You're married. Good. Do whatever you want. You can infatuate all you want. But the reason it can be dangerous while you're getting to know each other is you don't want to make decisions from that. Okay, so now that we've covered infatuation, how to ground yourself, next step is the next 90 days, your job is to be as clear and authentic and open and curious as much as you can be. Your intention, you are just two humans trying to figure out if you're a good match or not. It's not a relationship. You're not here to flirt and have a good time. You're here to intentionally figure out, do I want to be with this person for the rest of my life? And this is a really, we have to make that intention because it's very easy to slip into, this is fun. Like, it's really fun to hang out with this person. And it will be, right? It is fun to hang out, especially infatuation, all this. And so you get carried away and you forget the intention is, oh wait, we're actually trying to figure out if we're a good match or not. So every meeting you have during these 90 days, the intention has to be, we're meeting up for the sake of seeing if we're a good match. And always have that intention before you go anywhere. And if you're talking on the phone, texting, I'm trying to see, okay, is this a good match? So as you're talking to someone and let's say you notice a thing that it's hard to bring up, you can say the words, this is hard to bring up, but I feel like I have to say this. I feel this when this happens. And I want to work this out. What are your thoughts on this? Right? What we're not doing is, actually let's give a specific example. Let's say you notice the person doesn't text you after like a couple hours and it makes you feel anxious. And you want to bring it up to this person. The wrong way to say it is, you make me anxious when you don't text me back. Why is that wrong? Because you're kind of attacking them. It's like, you're causing me to feel anxiety. Versus the more mature way to bring something up like that is, listen, this is hard for me to bring it up, but I noticed when you don't text back after a couple hours, it makes me feel like you don't prioritize me. Or it makes me feel like you don't care about getting to know each other. And I want to hear your thoughts on that. Notice how the second one is much more open and like willing to have a conversation about, right? We're just more, less attacky, more open, more curious. Okay? Usually those kind of conversations will give you a lot about someone's character. How do they handle that? So if there's two ways that this can actually go. Someone could call you, oh, you're being crazy, why would you be anxious about that? Like, that's not a big deal. Or the other way is, oh, I understand why you're feeling that way, and then let me try to improve that. You feel the difference there, right? Okay. Another thing is like when you want to make a request, you notice someone doing something, and you want to make a request about this. So like, you can say, listen, this is something that I've been working on, but I notice I feel bothered when you do X, Y, and Z. And I really want this, I really want to know if this is something that's going to affect us in the future. Would you be willing to do this X, Y, and Z instead? And hear their thoughts on it. Okay, so the point that I'm trying to make here is you can make this relationship work when you're very open and honest, and that's your job. And then if they don't reciprocate, or if they're not honest, that is a great screening tool to weed them out. This right here is the meat of it. During these 90 days, you have to use it. And you're respectfully communicating, you're saying honestly what you're feeling. Even when you're afraid, like listen, I'm afraid to bring this up, but I'm practicing how to be vulnerable. This is what's bothering me when you say this. What do you think? Or this is this. So this is so important, not just to see if that's going to work, but for you to practice how to be vulnerable, so that when you do get into a marriage, inshallah, this will help you tremendously. Right now? Yeah. Okay, what do you think about that?
I think
the communication.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, these are things that I think I've always struggled with in terms of how to phrase it, because being vulnerable can be so anxiety-provoking. So I think just hearing the couple of just lines, the prompts that you used, are like golden, and I would recommend everyone to go back to the recordings and actually write down exactly the phrases that you used.
Yeah.
Because these are really great openers. They're neutral,
Mm-hmm.
They're non-judgmental. They focus it on you. Like, I'm practicing being more vulnerable. This is difficult to talk about. You acknowledge it up front, and then you get into it. It's a non-threatening, non-combative way to open up understandably a difficult conversation anyway. And I love the fact that the part where you said about their response tells you everything that you need to know. So if their response is extremely defensive, if the response is making excuses, well, like, no, it wasn't a lie, and you know what you're talking about. These are major red flags, right? Because if they're freaking out about a small criticism like this, it's very negative in terms of what it might foreshadow in the future.
Yeah, and to add on to that, even if they freak out in a negative way,
Yeah.
even observing them right after, do they come back and apologize for how they reacted? How do they handle that? Right? Just more from an understanding from a human perspective, how does he react as a human? Of course, if you point out something that a flaw he has, sometimes it can feel really like, you know, the ego can get triggered, but how does he handle that? How does he handle it when he gets triggered? How does she handle it when she gets triggered? And leaving some room for, like, we're not perfect, but also how do they handle it? And that's really important.
It's happened to me really early on in my marriage, actually. So my mom was visiting, I think, and it was a time in our life where, you know, alhamdulillah, now we're in Austin, which is, as you all know, the fourth holiest city in the world. So Mecca, Medina, Jerusalem, then Austin Sharif, right? But before that, we were living in the middle of nowhere. We were just starting out, right? No kids, nothing. And both my wife and I were working super hard. There was a time where I was, it was that way.
We should put a sign.
Yeah, we really should.
Yeah.
The third guy in the past hour. But yeah, like I'm not gonna get into too much unnecessary superfluous details. But there was a time in our life where, like, both my wife and I were working 7 days a week. So Monday through Friday I was at the masjid. I was studying full time, working full time. Then I had to drive an hour there and back every Saturday to teach the whole day to a bunch of 7th and 8th grade snotty students, right? Then teaching Sunday school. And then we were sharing a car in Texas without any air conditioning. Like, it was rough. It was a rough time, right? And my mom kind of visited. She, after a couple of days of spending, the day with us, she took me aside and she was like, I've noticed the past couple of days you haven't really been helping with, like, the dishes, and you haven't really been helping Zoya with, like, this, that, or the other. And I got really defensive. And I rarely ever, like, snap like this. I'm like, you don't see how hard I'm working? I'm like, I can barely sleep. And you want me to, like, you're worried about this? And in that moment, I felt called out, right? But, like, literally an hour later, I came back and I was like, you're right. Like, you're right. She feels alone. I'm not helping as much. And so I think you're totally on the mark when it comes to this, that it's about how they process it. It's about how they respond. And that tells you a lot about kind of where they're at.
So like the way that he came back and apologized, a narcissist would never, right? A psychopath would never. They would just be like, oh, that's all your fault. They gaslight you into believing you're the problem. They're just things to look out for, right? This is why we have these conversations to just shine some light on these things.
I am psychopathic in other ways. Maybe it's not this.
We all are in some ways. Yes. So really the main point of this is when we clean up all those fears, oh, I don't want to go back out there, I have to make this work, all that neediness goes away, and you're just coming from a clean, authentic, let me just be real here, let me just see if we're meant to be together or not. Let me just ask these questions. You're not attached, you're not obsessive, you're just like, listen, this is what I'm noticing. What are your thoughts on this? And opening up the thing. And to be authentic, literally saying what you're feeling in that moment. I have been avoiding bringing this up because it feels really hard to bring it up, but I'm practicing how to be vulnerable. Just whatever you're feeling, the real true feeling that you're feeling. Oh, I've been avoiding this for days, but here we are, I'm gonna bring it up. And I've been avoiding it because I'm afraid of how you'll react to it. When you say that, what happens is the other human listening to you, they're like, oh, they're a human being, they're not trying to attack me. They're just saying what's on their mind. Okay, does this part make sense so far? Any thoughts, questions on this?
Let's hear what that is.
Okay. Okay. All right, so now I'm gonna jump to decision making. Okay, so we're talking for 90 days. You've asked all the hard questions. Hard questions is what I mean by that is if you have any doubts or anything, you bring it up immediately. Oh, I have this doubt, like, oh, they said this one thing, and you don't just sit on it for the next 90 days, you actually ask it in that moment. When it's appropriate, right? Let's have some social smartness here, but okay, so decision making. Both of you feel like you're on the same page. The 90-day hit, or even before then, both of you are like, yep, we're in, we like this. To make the decision, I want you to ask yourself, how do you know that you're in? When you look at this human, where they're at right now, do you accept where they're at? Not the better version of them, do you accept where they're at right now? And we touched on this before previously. This is part of like, if this person never changed for the next 50 years, am I okay with it? And I mean it like, I'm not exaggerating, because when you have higher expectations or higher standards, you're gonna feel really disappointed, and you're gonna be like, what? I thought this would be different. And yeah,
because two things could happen, right? Like on the one hand, like you said, they may not change. But the other kind of more scary thing is they do try to change, and this is noble of them and admirable. But you'll often find that human beings, once they have sort of passed the phase of just like, their real sort of foundational development, when it comes to like anxiety-provoking situations, people tend to default back to what they're used to, back to what they know. So they may change for a while, but then when stuff hits the fan, they'll start to kind of regress back to what their comfort zone is, their wheelhouse, right? And so really, it's not just a theoretical like thought exercise. Like really think about this is a character trait of theirs, which is possible that they may like develop beyond this, but it's also very likely that they won't. How okay am I with that?
Mm-hmm.
It's really
we just
important.
can't bank on. We can't depend on.
You can't bank
yeah,
on them.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that's part one. Part two is when all the cute, lovey feelings are gone, what's left? Right? When all the like, oh, I like them because they like hiking just like me, and I like them because we like the same movies just like me, and when all of that is gone, what's left? Are you okay with that? Are you willing to live with that? Is that acceptable? So, the way I think about it is, let's say all the things we bond over today, if that changes in the next 5 years, what am I left with? Well, I'm left with a human being who has a good heart, who's willing, who's understanding and empathetic. I can work with that.
Yeah.
Like, let's get to the root of it, right? Let's not like each other because we like the same movies. What actually matters here, right? Yeah.
The amount of times I personally have experienced that as an imam, kid you not, and I swear to God, this one time, this brother came into my office and he goes, I think I found the one. And I was like, how do you know? He goes, well, like, and by the way, he doesn't go here, so I'm not exposing anybody, right? So don't think of anyone in your mind. He goes to another school. So he goes, I do dawah tabling on my campus, and she does dawah tabling on her campus. And I'm like, dude, that's not marriage, you know? Like you think like that, like you're gonna set up a dawah booth in your like living room, and that's what you'll be doing back and forth. Like I love the way you frame that argument against Jesus. It's like that. And I tell everybody, like even in my own personal life, I don't talk like aqidah with my wife at the breakfast table, right? Our marriage is not that. You can have shared interests, but the fact that, like you said, you both like hiking together is not a basis for marriage, right? That's the basis of like starting a hiking group in Austin, and they can be part of that group, but you don't have to marry that person. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's nice if you do have mutual interest, but let's not depend on that for the reason why we're saying yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you ask yourself these two questions, here are the possible outcome decisions that I've noticed from working with a lot of people here. So kind of 4 different things, okay? First one is like a fear-based yes. This fear-based yes is kind of a decision of like, okay, I'll say yes, but the reason is, like, I mean, yeah, they're okay, but I don't want to break it off because that might hurt them, so let me just go through this. The amount of I think, I don't know, men more specifically, I've seen that there's like, I don't know, I think she likes me, I kind of like her, and let me just go through with this. Like, and then it ends up, the divorce happens usually in the first year, because you can't change that feeling. Because the feeling, the reason behind it, do you like your reason? The reason is, like, I don't want to hurt them, so let me just go through this. They would rather be in a whole marriage than tell them, no.
Yeah.
Like, the people pleasing is at a whole another level, so, right? Another thought, another fear-based yes, is I might not find someone else, so let me just do this. It's coming from, I kind of like, we're okay, but like, I just might not find someone else.
When it comes to that, do you think people conflate two things? That, like, we're talking, and they're both reasonably like good people, so it's going okay, but they sort of interpret it as they know so much about me, they care about me, but really it's just that they just like the fact that they're getting attention from someone. Like, is it possible to conflate these two feelings?
Yes, yeah, for sure, 100%, right? And that's a great question you just brought up. Like, do I like them, or do I like the attention they're giving me? Do I like that they're stroking my ego every time I'm with them, or do I like what am I actually liking? And you have to be real with yourself, because this will affect the outcome of your marriage. Okay, there's a lot of scarcity-based reasons of why someone says yes. I don't want to reject them and waste their time. Let me go through with this. I'm scared. I don't know, can you think of more, like, what reasons?
Yeah,
people say yes
especially
to?
when that time period has already elapsed. That's a huge reason. Like, I don't want them to think I wasted their time.
Yeah.
Right, I had someone in my office a few months back who said, like, my best friend got married, my brother got married, my cousin got married, and I'm like, and so now, I'm like, none of those are reasons why you should get married.
Yeah.
Right? So again, it's just,
I want to be behind, so let me, I want to progress in my life, so I just need to get married.
Yeah.
Like, my mother keeps pressuring me, she keeps bringing me these new people, I'm tired of it, I just want to get married and get this over with. People do get married because of those reasons.
Yeah.
It's not, you look at their marriage, it's not fulfilling. They're just kind of surviving, if that's the word, right? So
roommates.
Roommates, yes, exactly. So people do have that. If that's what you want, go for it. But like, that's not what we're aiming for, right? And also, I do also want to point out there, especially, I think, we have some cultures, toxic parents, all these things where the woman especially feels like there's so much pressure to get married and there's no way out, that she does choose to get married. I personally don't want to judge that, because I see her perspective. I see how hard it can be. I do want to point out, like, let's not judge each other's reasons for why people do it, but also just check yourself to see if you like your reason for it. Because Allah puts people in situations where it's really tough. Like, honestly, I've heard cases of, like, acid attacks and stuff like that, and we don't know what's best for them. And not here, but like in the other worlds. And sometimes it's best for them to get married just for the sake of getting married, because of reasons like that. But alhamdulillah, we're not there. Alhamdulillah, most of us, I would assume, at least the people I've talked to, are not in that kind of dangerous situation. So we make, inshallah, decisions based off of, like, healthy reasons. Okay, I also forgot, I missed a very crucial part, so I'm going to go back one step. During these 90 days, you are making istikhara every single day. And I'm saying this not from a fiqh perspective, from more of a coaching mental perspective. Istikhara as in, Ya Allah, if this person is good for me, make it happen. If it's not, take them away from me. Every single day, what this does is allows you to detach from the outcome. Because you're reminding yourself every day, Ya Allah, you know what's best for me, not me. Every single day you're making that dua, istikhara. Please, Ya Allah, I really like this person, I'm sensing myself getting really attached. If it's not good for me, take it away from me. And if it is, let it allow it with grace, inshallah. And that's why istikhara is more, when I say it, it's more because it trains your subconscious mind to not attach. It really helps to just detach. Right, what do you think of?
Yeah, I have a whole section on that, and before getting into it, it's just one comment. SubhanAllah, I didn't even know you were going to mention this, but that is exactly the advice I give to my students. Because it was something I was told by one of my teachers. When I had already met my wife. I decided I was going to marry her, so my decision was made. I consulted one of my teachers for the barakah of like just consulting, and he said, "I hope you're still making istikhara every day until the wedding." And I remember distinctly telling him, I'm like, "No, I don't think you heard me right," because we were on the phone. Like, I already decided. And he's like, "No, you're being an idiot. Like, istikhara is not to decide something. Unbeknownst to many people, that's what they think it's for. It's for, like you said, training your brain to trust Allah's outcome and to infuse barakah and goodness in the decision. So for that reason alone, you should do istikhara every day." And that same night, I emailed who will be my future wife, that I'm planning on doing istikhara every day from now until December, which is when we got married. I would suggest you do the same thing, and we did. We did, and it helps.
Yeah, that's
So I
both
say
of
that-
you. Both
Yeah,
of you.
I say the same thing to
Yes.
people.
Yeah, good. Yeah, and it's what this. Yeah, I lost my train of thought. But I was just saying what you said there is dang. Yeah. Oh, there. I remember now. Istikhara is not let me pray and let me wait for a dream to hear a sign. It's you make a decision and istikhara.
Yeah.
It's. I hear this so much. It's like I'm waiting for a dream to
Yeah,
show me that
that's
this is
so
the
good.
guy, and it's like no, this is where the practical, logical steps is what I'm explaining of how you make a decision. This is your part, and then if Allah allows it to happen, then that's what's meant to happen. So real quick, let me just go on the 4 possible decisions, right? So the fear-based yes, the yes I'm in, right? The yes, like your gut feeling is like you feel all in. That is a good feeling. And you tell me, I felt this with my husband, like I knew, like, yes, I'm in. Like I don't care, like I'm in. I know what's coming with this. I know all the problems. I see it. I'm in.
Yeah, to the point. This may make me sound like a really bad person, but every other kind of like potential person that could have married or whatever, my family is like. Typically, families can be very close, but we're like uncomfortably close, right? To the point where like after we would visit like a family, a potential kind of suitor, spouse, whatever, like my dad would have this thing where you call it family powwow. We would get together, like, what you think of the family? What you think? And what you think? And there'd be moments, and my wife hates when I say this, but there were moments, honestly, where I'd meet a young woman, and we would hit it off. Like she was fine, right? And so I could potentially marry her. I liked her, whatever. And my sister, who was like 7 years younger, the baby of the family, would say some weird, like ridiculous, like her mom was annoying. And my dad would take it seriously, like, okay, well, I'm not gonna marry into this family because Miriam said the mom's annoying. I'm like, really? We're taking testimony from this, like, this person? Like, and so, but it happened so much, like, my family was so obsessed with, like, all of us need to like her. We're all gonna marry this person. I'm like, who's we all? I'm gonna marry this person. Y'all need to back off, right? But the moment I met Zoya, my wife, we were exiting her apartment, and I remember walking down the stairs and thinking to myself, I don't care what my sister says about her. She's the one.
Yes.
She's the one.
Yeah.
Not that I don't care about her input, but to speak to
Technically,
that.
we don't care.
Yeah. But to speak to that feeling,
Yes.
I was in.
Yes.
She's
Yeah.
the one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I can describe it the same way. It's just like
Yeah.
the strong, like I'm in feeling, and it just logically it makes sense. Logically, emotionally, everything just feels good,
Yeah.
and I think that's a feeling directly from Allah, subhanAllah. Like that just lets you know that you're in. Now, this can be confused with infatuation. I found the one, I'm in. No, like after you've done all this work and you've really reflected and asked yourself the question, it feels like more of a grounded I'm in rather than like you're flat high in the sky kind of, I found my person and I'm in Jannah kind of feeling. There's two kinds. It's very subtle. I know inshallah with time you'll distinguish the difference, but what would you say on that? Like, would you tell the difference between when you were more infatuated and like?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the clear difference is the one is the end result of a process
Yes.
and a procedure,
Yeah.
right? And that's why, and we'll talk about it
Mhm.
in my portion too, like the steps to make a decision.
Yeah.
Like, so even if it's wrong, our deen gives us confidence that because you follow the methodology, like for A, you're getting rewarded by Allah, but like following the sunnah of how to make a decision, and B, like you should never regret a decision you made based on following a proper procedure.
Mhm.
Like you should be proud of that,
Yeah.
right? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so then now the next one is like a fear-based no. And this is more of like people say no because they're just afraid and they haven't answered that fear. So one fear is like, what if they change? Or what if they come out to be something they're not when I marry them? And they just say no to the whole person because of that. Or it's too scary, or like, I don't know what I'm getting into, or thoughts like these that can be solved with communication, with just like sitting and reflecting, what are you actually afraid of? I'm gonna be honest, I said no to my husband at the very beginning. And Sheikh Hasib was like, what do you think about Kareem? And I was like, he doesn't really have chemistry. I don't vibe with him like that. And he was like, he's just awkward. Let him just give it a chance. And he was like, usually mentioned boys are just awkward because they don't interact with girls. I was like, okay, that's fine. But I said no because I was afraid like that we wouldn't like. I was like, there's not going to be any connection, so I don't want to waste his time. So there's a lot of no's, and you just kind of or fears coming from no's, and you just have to ask yourself, why am I saying no? And is this a real reason, or is this something that can be solved? So alhamdulillah, I'm glad Sheikh Hasib actually pushed me to talk to him. So here we are.
We're all glad.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And then there's a direct, just straight up no. Like you can tell it's just a no. And sometimes when it's just a no, and you ignore that gut feeling no, and there's like the other fears of like, I can't directly say no because what if I don't want them to think that I'm rejecting them directly, or all these other thoughts. Like just get over yourself and just say no. It's not about you. It's about you. It's about them. It's about like this is someone else's spouse. You gotta just when you feel the no, directly say it. Whatever your reason for that no is, like if you're not physically attracted at all, like there's no chance, like you're utterly repulsed, then you just end it. Okay, any follow-up thoughts on that or the no part? Okay, good. And then last thing is like, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm uncertain. How to solve uncertainty is always about there is a doubt in your mind that you're not answering. Uncertainty is when you say, if I were to show you an image of the future of you and this person absolutely happy, you would be like, okay, I'm in. But your uncertainty is coming from, I don't know something. And there's a question in your mind that's not answered that you have to bring it up. I don't know is not an option. Do not sit in confusion for too long. The brain loves to be confused because when you're confused, you don't have to make any decisions. Yeah. Decisions are scary. That means you have to do something. So it's much better to actually be confused to the brain because the brain prioritizes pleasure, which is what's comforting, what's pleasurable, which is just doing nothing. I've met people who have been confused for years. I don't know, like I still need to get to know them. That's how like non-Muslims do this. They're like, I don't know, I still need to like live with them and maybe have a baby, and then we'll see. Maybe we'll think about it. It's like, what are you uncertain about? All of that.
Sorry. No, my best friend growing up, he like, he's one of those people that like physically grew up here, but mentally he's like back home, right? And so like all of his aunts and uncles, he comes from a family of like 18 like aunts, and it's just his whole like tribe back home is just his family, and so he had a bunch of like just like super like just Bedouin tribal people visiting like his family in America, and they're neighbors to these like super white like just hick people, Jim and Kim. All right, so Jim and Kim, they've known them for years. They've got a good rapport to the point where like Jim and Kim come over in Ramadan, iftar, the food obviously. Our food has flavor in it, so they like eating it and stuff. It's not just seasoned with salt and pepper, and so one day the entire like plan was over, right? And Jim and Kim are like in their 50s, right? They've got like a bunch of kids. Ostensibly, you would assume they're married and stuff. So Kim came over, like elated one day, and then just. The door opened, she flashed her like hand like this. Jim proposed.
It's like, girl, what?
Yeah, it's like proposed what? Like what are you talking about? So yeah, non-Muslims do without a framework of like they're in perpetual confusion.
Yeah.
Like after like 4 kids, after they grew up and went to college, like you're like 60 something years old, then you're proposing to get married.
Yeah.
Like
They got all the benefits of marriage.
I saw this play out in real life.
Yeah.
You know, and because I'm his best friend, I was over at the time, and I got like a lecture afterwards, like this is how America is. Like they went back like the next day.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. So to answer uncertainty is always there's doubts. There's always a doubt, whether it's a subconscious doubt, whatever it is. What are you afraid of that's making you not want to make a decision? Just bring that up, and it's usually something internally, by the way, something that you're afraid of that you need to probably solve within yourself, or ask the person. And then final kind of question that I like to ask is would you rather be single or would you rather be with this person? Why or why not? It kind of seals the deal in. Okay, and then I'm going to cover a little bit more about what makes a good or bad decision, right and wrong, but first I want to hear from you.
Sure. So
decision making.
yeah, my portion of today's session was going to be on sort of prophetic decisions. What is the sunnah of decision making, and what are some Islamic guidelines related to decisions in general in life, but particularly when it comes to choosing your significant other. We've already, been talking for a while. It's been, an hour or so. If y'all could do me a favor and just kind of like stretch out a bit. Y'all have been sitting for some time. Just kind of like, shake it off. Give a nice shoulder massage to the brother next to you and the sister near you. Right?
I like the turnout of brothers though.
Yeah, they're holding it down. I'm not sure. So, what are some Islamic guidelines given to us from the Quran and Sunnah about making the correct decision? And what sort of advice would we give in that regard? After consulting quite a bit with many of my teachers and some just senior people that I trust and I typically go to, and also just sort of taking stock of what I've observed in the community after having the opportunity to serve for many years, I've essentially distilled what I believe is a good framework that our religion gives for decision making into 3 steps. The first of those 3 has to do with the ilm, which is knowledge. So gathering as much information as you possibly can. So we as Muslims don't make decisions based on ignorance. We don't make decisions based on whims or desires. We make informed decisions. We'll flesh this out in a bit, inshallah, and we'll flesh all these out. But the first one is to gather as much information and make the most knowledgeable decision that you can in the moment. Don't leave any rock unturned. Don't leave any doubts unanswered. Don't leave any questions unattended. This is the moment. Before decision time is to iron out all these details. So be on the hunt for information and knowledge because that is empowering. All right, number 2. Second step is what is known as istishara or shura, which is consultation. Consultation. We'll talk at length about this in the next few minutes, but just as by way of introduction, we as Muslims consult a lot less than we should. We consult a lot less than we should. I would say young people as well consult a lot less than they should. There's a lot of stock put into, doing it on your own, arriving, at the conclusion on your own. And our religion isn't built that way. I will give some pretty powerful examples of even the Prophet ﷺ, despite him being given revelation from Allah and being in communication with an angel, he was ordered in the Quran to consult his companions, to show the rest of us the barakah of consulting the right people. And we'll talk about who those people can be in the context of marriage. And finally, number 3, and we touched upon it earlier, is the process and procedure of istikhara, of doing istikhara. So number 1 is ilm, knowledge. Number 2 is istishara. And number 3 is istikhara. All right? So let's tackle them one by one. Number 1, sort of a general proof in our Sharia. Interesting story in the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There was an individual who came, whose name was Khalif ibn Dirar. There was a year during Medina where the Prophet ﷺ was receiving lots and lots of delegations. Some books of Sirah mention that there were like 60 tribes that came during that year to pledge allegiance to the Prophet ﷺ, and they all accepted Islam one by one by one. However, not every tribe could make it. One such example was the tribe of Banu Mustaliq. Banu Mustaliq did not arrive in Medina, but all of them, but one of their representatives came and said, I will guarantee that my tribe will become Muslim. I'll go back, I'll teach them Salah, I'll teach them how to pray, I'll teach them Zakat, etc., etc. And the Prophet said, okay, fine. Of course, Salah, we can't really monitor it because you guys live far away, but I'll send someone to collect your Zakat as a pillar of Islam, and when we receive your Zakat, we'll kind of, that'll be our sign to show that you guys are committed and you're being Muslim. So what ends up happening, the story goes like this. He sent one of the famous companions, Walid ibn Uqba, to go collect zakat from this tribe. There are two versions of the story. One version says, for some reason he never made it there, and when he came back to Medina, he was really embarrassed that like I wasn't able to collect it. I just, one thing led to the next. I just got whatever. He got lost, he got scared, and he comes back without any money. He's embarrassed of that, so then he tells everyone that I don't think they're actually even Muslim. I went there, tried to collect zakat, they didn't want to give it. In fact, they wanted to wage war in Medina. And just, they're not, vibing with the whole Islam thing. Another version of the narration says that he actually arrived late to this tribe, and they were waiting and waiting and waiting. Finally, when they saw him come, they were so ecstatic and elated, the entire tribe left their homes and met Walid ibn Uqba on the outskirts of the city. They were all lined up to receive him. He saw that and got freaked out. Because the only other time the Arabs would line up like this is when they went for battle. So he's like, I'm not coming any closer to these people. They're all lined up like they're going to attack me. So he just kind of like, sayonara, he went back, and he actually reported back that they want to wage war with us. They're not Muslim. So the overall sentiment in Medina was that, look, if they promise to be Muslim and now they're going back on their word, we have to go and show them how serious Islam is. They can't do this. So the plan was to go attack this place to kind of show them this is not to be taken lightly, that you guys need to pay your zakat. It's a pillar of the religion, right? And here the Prophet ﷺ shows us the value of not depending on what this person said or that person said. You have the responsibility of verifying what a person is truly like. You have the obligation of arriving to the truth, of doing your due diligence. So he sends another person, Khalid ibn Walid. And that was really strategic, because as we know about him, he was a military genius. So in case this place needed to be attacked, he could do it. But he instructed him that before you do that, camp out in front of their sort of village where they can't see you. Just kind of observe, like, are they really non-Muslim? Are they really practicing? What's the deal? So he goes and does this. And what he observes is something beautiful. He says, I camped out right outside the city, and all you hear at night is recitation of the Quran from every tent, from every home, from every hut. Like every family is teaching their children Quran. Every father is leading their families in prayer and tahajjud, in qiyam. So I don't believe that they're not going to pay zakat, because they're praying, they're fasting, they're reciting Quran, and it turned out that he was right, that it was a big misunderstanding. So this was the scenario that eventually led to the revelation of a beautiful ayah of the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyan. That if someone comes to you with news, verify it, confirm it, clarify it. There are two versions of the ayah, there are two recitations, fatabayyanu and fatathabbatu. One means verify, the other one means clarify, right? So this sets the stage of whenever you have to make an important decision in life, knowledge is your ultimate weapon. right? If there's any confusions about, like, what did you mean by that? You kind of mentioned that you were close with your mom and dad, and like you come from a joint family system. So, like, are we going to be living with your folks? Like, you know? And subhanAllah, just last week, someone came to me with this question, exactly verbatim. Verbatim, this was their question. That the person I'm talking to for marriage said, quote, I'm close to my parents, and I lived with my grandparents growing up. The only system I know is joint family. And so one of my fears is if I marry this person, I won't have my own space. I'll be living with his parents. I won't have autonomy to like decorate the house the way I want. We won't have privacy. But I don't really know because I haven't really asked him. And I'm like, why not? And she goes, I don't want to rock the boat. I'm like, no, you're not rocking the boat. This is a fundamental question.
Yeah, and rock the boat.
Yeah, this is.
You want the boat to be rocked.
This is a reason to rock a boat,
Yeah.
right? Like, so this is a very powerful ayah, although it's not directly related to marriage, but it's about whenever there's confusion about something, verify, clarify, right? Get the information, and we'll talk more about what that looks like. How do you tease out information, and who do you talk to? But that's the first thing. Now, to directly connect this to marriage, because very often in sometimes overly religious, overly conservative societies and communities, this can seem very taboo, right? Even many of you may come from families that may object to like, why are you talking to someone for marriage? Is this why we send you to UT? Is this why we send you to college? We're sending your hard-earned tuition money so you're free to fall in love with somebody, right? So what is the Islamic basis of like starting a conversation, talking to someone about marriage? Is it even allowed? There's a famous narration from Abu Hurairah, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. It comes in Sahih Muslim, authentic hadith. He says, قَالَ كُنْتُ عِنْدَ النَّبِي sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that he says, I was once in the company of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, فَأَتَاهُ رَجُلٌ, a man arrived in the gathering, فَأَخْبَرَهُ أَنَّهُ تَزَوَّجْ إِمْرَأَةً. He said that he informed the Prophet he's about to get married. And interestingly enough, the Prophet, instead of like congratulating him and saying, great, what time's the wedding? Am I going to be invited? He actually flips the script and asks him that, فَقَالَ لَهُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ, he said to him, أَنَظَرْتَ إِلَيْهَا? Have you seen her? Have you spoken to her? Have you spent time with her? Because he kind of like read between the lines that seems like a purely arranged situation. There's nothing fundamentally wrong about that, but he was like, I don't want you to have any surprises after the marriage, right? So what my recommendation would be like, just go talk to her. See if you're compatible. قَالَ لَا, he said, I haven't spoken to her. I haven't even seen her. He told him, قَالَ فَذْهَبْ, go back to that family, فَانْظُرْ إِلَيْهَا, and glance at the person. Like, see if there's attraction. See if there's chemistry. This is the Prophet, an authentic narration, telling a young man to do this. Right? Telling a young man to do this. So, when it comes to figuring out if you're compatible, whether or not there's chemistry, first of all, it's allowed to talk to someone. It's allowed to talk to them directly about it. There's not one way of doing this. That's part of the beauty of the fact that the Prophet ﷺ had multiple marriages, because each one of them was slightly different. Right? His marriage to Khadija radiallahu anha proposed to him. Whereas long after she passed away, many of his other subsequent marriages, he proposed to them. Right? So, and some of them was introduced through a family friend. Some of them were introduced through family. Some of them were introduced through mutual kind of sahaba. Some of them, the Prophet approached them directly. So all of these fall under the umbrella of Islamic acceptability. But really what makes it halal is how you approach it. So here's the part where usually in my office, I transition from the fiqh advice to what I typically call like older brother advice. If I was your older brother and I'm advising, like, if I had a brother or sister, right, what kind of advice would I give? 3 things on your path of getting to know someone. Number 1, a few kind of red lines to keep in mind. I'm not going to mince my words, we're all adults in this room, right? Except for the few occasions when we're like, my son comes and he just runs all over, right? But right for now, all of us are adults. Or looking around. I don't know.
We're trying to
I guess
do it.
physically and mentally, I guess we're all different ages, but a few kind of red lines that one should not cross in this process. Number one, it is haram. I'll say it again. It is haram for a young man or a young woman, or even an older man or woman, to stare at the opposite gender with lust and desire. It's okay to be attracted to someone, but you cannot fixate your gaze on something you're attracted to. The Quran talks about this. Allah addresses the men first, the women next. He says, قُلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ يُغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُم. That tell the believing men to lower their gaze and to guard their private parts. Right? So, and related to this, our Prophet ﷺ says that Allah forgives the first glance, because if your glance happens to fall on something that you're attracted to, that wasn't your fault. But the second glance is your choice. You're held responsible for that second one, not the first one. There's a famous, typical Imam joke that's said on occasions like this, right? Don't try to cheat the system. Don't look at someone and be like, I'm still staring. So technically it counts as what?
First.
My first glance. That is not what this is talking about, all right? And so, subhanAllah, it's almost as though Allah predicted that we would do that. And so another really powerful place in the Quran, He says, يَعْلَمُ خَائِنَةَ الْأَعْيُنِ وَمَا تُخْفِي الصُّدُورِ. He knows even those glances that your eyes steal. That no one else saw it, but Allah said, I saw it. I noticed. So don't do that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, if you're talking to them and you're attracted, what's the line? Like, how do we know if it's haram or halal?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think if you're talking to someone and you're attracted to them, that's a good sign. We talked many sessions ago about the famous authentic hadith where the Prophet said that a person's married for 4 reasons. The first thing he mentioned is beauty. Right? So attraction was the first thing on the list. So that feeling of attraction is fine. But if you find yourself unable to control your gaze, and if you're looking at them with the purpose of lust and the purpose of desire, and to put it quite bluntly and frankly, if you're just using random opportunities to just check them out, that's wrong. That's wrong, right? But just sort of knowing in general that I, am attracted to this person. This person, what's the phrase y'all use? I just can't keep up with all the vernacular and terminology. I don't know if you can.
I don't know which
Or no, it took me 10 years to learn the word bet. But what's the phrase? She makes me feel it.
Oh, I got caught feelings.
Caught feelings is one, yeah.
I don't know.
Which I never
Can y'all
understood.
help us out?
I never understood that phrase because it feels like you caught a disease. I caught feelings and then whatever.
Yeah.
He makes me feel a certain type of way or whatever. So anyway, the point is that it really depends on with what purpose are you looking at that person, and the rulings about lowering your gaze does not suspend just because you're talking for marriage and you're talking about marriage, right? There are ways, obviously, to naturally look at someone, organically look at them as you're talking to them, and figure out if you're attracted. But beyond that, once you've figured that out, right, and now the only purpose to look at them from here on out is just to satisfy, your desire to have eye candy, right? That's wrong. Are we clear? Any confusions, questions, clarifications, retractions? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I
So
didn't see.
if you're talking to someone, can you look them in the eye?
I knew this was gonna happen.
Yeah.
This is gonna happen.
So
So we need to clarify, are you saying specifically once you feel feelings of lust as you look at them, maybe that's a time to not
Yeah.
give distance versus just attraction?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's important to clarify between lust and attraction. In terms of the fiqh of it, when the Quran talks about lowering one's gaze, the scholars have commented on a great deal about what that physically even looks like should you walk around with like your eyes glued to the ground, and like, so no, you're allowed to look at someone, like in the eyes. You're allowed to look at someone like eye to eye and have a respectful conversation, but the difference comes is if you're looking for the purpose of checking them out, like as you're talking, you're not even listening to what they're saying. You're checking out their physical appearance and their body. Like that's wrong. Like don't ogle someone. That's what's being talked about here. Not just physically, like of course you walk around, you look at stuff. That's fine, right? But what's talking about here is don't unnecessarily objectify. Don't look at someone and start to fantasize. Like that stuff is wrong.
Yeah, I think it's a good topic because I think what maybe Muslim men specifically maybe struggle with, especially practicing one, is they get too awkward because they're so, like, they look down too much and the girl's like, do you even like me?
Yeah.
So it's like what is, you know?
No, I remember
it's
we had a guest speaker come about 2-3 years ago, and the only reason I overheard this because I was still on the couch because we pull out the couch and we typically the imam and the speaker sits there and we do the program, and there's a brother that came up to him and asked him, like what is the process of saying salam to a sister? It was the most simple question, and it should have been the most simple answer. And what transpired over the course of the next 10 minutes, I kid you not, it was a 10-minute answer. I was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. I cannot begin to explain the awkwardness of that respected speaker, how he approached that question. He was like, you just have to, you just kind of, you just kind of just like, don't look at her, but don't look at her.
Yeah.
Like say salam, but don't say salam.
This is why it's complicated.
Like, and just like, if you see her like in the hallway, just kind of like, pass by her, but don't. And I was like, what is going on? And I'm just like, I just could not believe how complicated that answer was. But even worse, the brother was like, Jazakallah khairan. That was really helpful. And I was like, what? What part about that was helpful? Right? So yeah, we as Muslims really do get in our heads with this.
Yeah.
It does not have to be overly complicated, which is why I'm not mincing my words when I say, like when the Quran says lower your gaze, what that means is don't look at people with lust, don't fantasize. And every person here knows when they're doing that, right? That's what that means. It doesn't mean like when you're talking to them, just kind of look at the ground, right? That defeats the purpose of talking.
And even in the second session, like, you weren't here, but someone asked like, how do I just approach a girl? And I hesitated to even answer this because it's like, there's this whole haram halal situation, and so if I could simplify it, and you tell me if I'm wrong, as long as you're being respectful in your intention is I'm being respectful and let me approach it in a respectful way. As soon as if you feel feelings of lust and you're only talking to her for the sake of lust, that's when we need to. Right? Is that a good simplified answer? I'm trying to simplify it for the people. Because I don't want people to take it too extreme, like just not look at the girl at all.
Number 2, the second kind of advice is to avoid physical touch between the opposite genders. Right? This may be something that is obvious to some of you, but you'd be surprised like how many people just don't know this, right? And my approach has always been, to not, when it comes to like gender interactions, there are 2 approaches the Muslim community takes. One approach is like, oh my God, I can't believe guys and girls are talking. Let's basically separate them, right? Which can be an approach given a very particular demographic. If you're dealing with like teenagers or like middle school students, they're just sort of like on the cusp of maybe just figuring out like puberty and desire. Like maybe you want to maybe separate their social events and things. But when you're dealing with like young adults, young professionals, people of that kind of caliber, the solution is not to make it so that guys and girls live on different planets and come from different universes. Because that separation, that barrier, is a false one. Because that separation doesn't exist on campus. It doesn't exist at the workplace. It doesn't exist in the real world. A much better solution is to actually put guys and girls together and teach them how to respectfully interact, right? The reason I'm mentioning this is every summer, what we do here at Nuesis, we do a Nuesis orientation. So when young freshmen kind of come in and they have orientation on campus, we sort of pass out flyers and get the word out that there's a mosque right off campus. So in the evenings when they're done with their campus stuff, they come, we do an orientation for them here. So here's the programs we offer, here's a home away from home, here's how you can plug in, and et cetera, right? And so in one of the sessions, literally, in fact, I think it was the first session, there was a young brother and sister, 2 incoming freshmen, like right here in the Musalla, right? Like, it was, the whole bunch was packed. And they started talking to each other, and they realized like, oh, you're from the city, I'm from the same city, and stuff, and they're like, oh my God, and so like they got really excited, and the guy and girl high-fived each other, and gave each other like a celebratory hug, like, oh, we're both from Dallas, and or Houston, I forgot where they're from, and I'm just like, that's not something to be excited about, like, and it's not something to hug over, like, what are y'all doing, right? But there's one elderly person in the masjid who was there, who saw that, right, exactly, oh no, freaked out, he's like, Imam can't talk to you, and I'm like, here we go. He's like, how could you allow this? What kind of imam are you? You saw this happen in front of you. Like, astaghfirullah now.
You controlled that.
Yeah, it's like, what do you want me to do? Like, get between them? But he's like, this is the exact reason why, like, guys and girls should never see each other. And I'm like, all right. So I sat him down and I'm like, while that situation was regrettable, right? What ultimately will lead to the reform and education and like islah of these young men and women is not if we separate them out, but rather if we teach them how to interact. That's the solution. That's the solution. And subhanAllah, that same brother, by the way, turned out that the only reason he did the high five and the hug, no one ever told him. No one ever stopped and told him that like physical touch between opposite genders who are not related is haram. He didn't know that. He didn't know that. Right? So it's just a matter of education. So this may seem like obvious things, but because we have a diverse kind of crowd, I want to make sure that this is very clear, right? That we don't stare at the opposite gender with lust and desire. Number 2, we avoid physical touch and contact. And this can be very foreign because society around us says that you should do that, right? Because, that's what everyone does. Number 3, very quickly, as just a point of advice, is to avoid being in absolute seclusion with someone of the opposite gender. This is a concept known as khalwa. Khalwa is exactly what it means. Seclusion is being in a situation, in a place where no one else can come in or out. And no one knows that you're there. You're in complete privacy. You're in complete privacy. So, to flesh this out a bit, meeting in a public coffee shop, that's not seclusion. Meeting somewhere like in a park where people are kind of passing by and things, that's not seclusion, right? But meeting up in like a hotel room where only you and her have the keys, that's seclusion, right? Going to her dorm, that's seclusion. Meeting up in your apartment, that's seclusion, right? Meeting anywhere and locking the door is seclusion. That should be avoided. That should be avoided. Now, these 3 were like fiqh things. Beyond that, because of just years of kind of doing this, here's some just advice. When you talk to someone for marriage, try to have those conversations in the daytime, not at night. There's something very special and intimate about nighttime, something very vulnerable about nighttime. There's nothing like fiqh-wise against it, but it's just not a good idea. It's not a good idea. All right? Is that clear? Yeah, I think it's probably pretty obvious to many of you why you would try to just avoid that, right? Whatever you can talk about at night, it can wait until tomorrow morning. It can wait until tomorrow morning. In fact, one of my teachers, I consulted him quite a bit before even joining this masjid, and asked him for advice, and he said that what I need you to do is to be open and accessible to all your students. Give them your number, be available, right? Answer the questions. Doesn't matter like if it's the weekend or your day off. And I do this, like my weekends and days off are spent answering emails, answering questions, right? But one advice he gave me, he said, try not to respond to sisters at nighttime. You can draft a response, you can type it out, but just send it in the day. It's just a good, like, protective mechanism. That's the advice he gave me. That's the advice I want to give you all as well. Clear? All right, very good. Number 2, second advice is when meeting, it's better to be chaperoned than being alone. That doesn't mean that you have to call necessarily like your helicopter parents to like you supervise the date. That'd be kind of weird, you know, like your dad is just like brooding in the corner with like a gun. So conveniently like, you know, shotgun, just you know. But no, the person you kind of bring along doesn't have to be at the table. They could be like within earshot, or they can be like somewhere else. But just someone that you loop in, that just as a means of just, it's a check to make sure that the situation doesn't devolve. It is something that's just not wholesome and not good. So something that like couples or potential couples typically do is like if you're messaging back and forth or like emailing back and forth to like CC someone else who's not going to read all the messages, but the fact that they're copied is enough of a deterrent for you not to talk about things that are not appropriate. Because you know at any given moment they could access the messages, right? It's up to you to figure out who that person is, but someone that inshallah both of you mutually kind of trust. Very quickly, the second thing we talked about is consultation. Consultation. And subhanAllah, this is an amazing tie-in to marriage. Because not only did the Prophet ﷺ consult on like worldly matters, because that's obvious, right? The Prophet ﷺ on one occasion like suggested a type of like cross-fertilization for the farmers in Medina, and it didn't work. It didn't work. So the farmers came back and said, well, what's the deal? You're the Prophet of God and you told us to do this. We of course, we expected it to work, but it didn't. The Prophet clarified, he said, I'm here to teach like deen, religion, revelation from Allah. I don't know about this thing. It was just an idea I had from my like human brain. And in matters like this, he said very famously, أَنْتُمْ أَعْلَمْ بِأُمُورِ دُنْيَاكُمْ, that you all know the matters of this world better than me in this regard. You guys are professionals, you guys are like, you know, lifelong farmers. So next time, just, if it's not revelation, you don't have to take it, right? But 2 years after the Hijrah, in fact, there's a tie into Ramadan as well. The famous Battle of Badr takes place on the 17th of Ramadan. One of the shuhada that gave their life among the 313 was an individual by the name of Khunais ibn Hudayfa. Anyone know who that was? Khunais ibn Hudayfa gave his life in that battle. He was married to the daughter of Umar bin Khattab, Hafsa bint Umar. So now Hafsa is a widow. Hafsa is a widow. Shortly thereafter, the Prophet's own daughter passes away, Ruqayyah, who is married to Uthman bin Affan. So what ends up happening is Umar says, my daughter needs a husband, Uthman needs a wife. So he goes to Uthman and says, would you marry my daughter? And Uthman gets really awkward about it. He's like, I'd love to, she's great, you're great, but I'm not ready. He's not, and Umar got really upset, like it's hurtful. He's like, I thought we were close, I thought we were boys. Like, you know, and back, you know, then even now, like Arab men who want to show closeness to other people of their tribe, they offer their daughters for marriage. Like that's the biggest expression of like, I trust you with my, you know, my heart and soul. And I bared my soul to you, I gave my daughter, you rejected it? Like, what's the deal? He kept being awkward about it. He goes, okay, fine, you know, maybe you're not, you just don't want to do it, whatever. Then he goes to who? Anyone know?
Abu Bakr.
Very good, excellent. He goes to Abu Bakr Siddiq. He asks him the same question. Abu Bakr flat out just says no. He says no. And Umar actually commented on this. He said that I thought like Uthman's like reaction was bad. Oh, Abu Bakr's was even worse. At least like he was beating around the bush. He straight up was like, no way. But then what ended up happening is he came to find out that both of them said no because the Prophet ﷺ was already thinking about proposing to Hafsa. And before Umar came to talk to both of them, the Prophet ﷺ came to Abu Bakr and to Uthman to ask them what is their opinion about this. Like, I know Umar, but you also know Umar too. You know his family, you know his daughter. Would this be a good match? Would this be a good match? This is a rare moment where we sort of peel back the curtain and see the Prophet as a human being. Right? Like, he's literally consulting his social circle, like his friends, about a person. That shows us that, like, we don't consult enough. Right? And so the second thing is, beyond talking to the person, meeting up with them, talking to them, seeing them, another part of decision making is consulting people that know them. Consulting people that know you. Right? And there's an art to identifying who to consult. Right? And we can talk more about kind of like narrowing down exactly like who to talk to and the advantage of like, you know, talking to very specific people about this.
I think,
Very
sorry,
very quickly, there's 3 pieces of advice our classical scholars give when it comes to determining who you seek advice from. There are 3 conditions that are often mentioned. The first condition that's mentioned is that they should be nasih, which means sincere. That they want the best for you. Someone who has like skin in the game, right? Like someone who you know for a fact that they're also like looking to propose to the same person. Like that might not be the person to talk to. Like, bro, I don't think like you are compatible with her. Like I'm more her type. Like that's not, if you have what's the phrase? Conflict of interest. Right? That's not the person to consult. So nasih, someone who doesn't have any skin in the game, they can give you unadulterated, genuine, unfiltered, honest advice. So number 1, nasih. Number 2 is someone who is mutajarrab. Mutajarrab is someone who has experience in this area. Experience in this area. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've had someone come into my office and talk about like, oh, I think he's the one for me or she's the one for me. And I'm like, why do you think so? It's because we talked about it all night with my roommates. I'm like, are your roommates married? No. Are they committed relationships? No. Like, do they know anything about marriage? No. It's like, but we decided amongst the 3 of us that this person is good for me. And I'm like, that is a disaster waiting to happen. Right? So consult people who like know about the process, who have been there and done that. Number 3, they say very quickly, is someone with taqwa. Someone who will tell you not what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. Right? If someone is getting, like the sister said, like infatuated, if someone's crossing a red line, you need people around you that will be unapologetic and letting you know that I think you are approaching this the wrong way. I think you need to kind of maybe reel it back. I think there's a better way of doing this. All right? And if you ever find yourself in a position of not, seeking advice, but giving it, understand 2 things. Our Prophet ﷺ says in one hadith, al-majalisu bil-amana. Al-majalisu bil-amana. That gatherings are to be kept confidential. This is a famous narration. This is one of 326 hadith. There are year 2 seminary students have to memorize by the end of the year, I think. May Allah give them tawfiq. They're not on track, so, so this is, gatherings are to be kept and confidential. Number 2, the Prophet said, al-mustashar mu'taman, that the one who is sought advice from should hold up integrity. Should hold up integrity. And thirdly, the Prophet said, whoever is sought advice for something and knowingly leads someone astray, this is the ultimate illustration of khiyana. Khiyana is treachery and betrayal. Betraying your brother, betraying your sister. And finally, I'll say that when it comes to consulting about marriage, it's one of those few areas where what you have to say about someone does not count as ghiba, as backbiting. So if you know something honest about someone, they're quick to anger, or they've cheated, or just just something that will directly impact like the relationship. You are responsible for sharing that, right? You're responsible for sharing that. That's really important, right? Someone has like, children from a previous marriage. You should divulge that. That's important, right? So it's a balance. So I'll say two things. Number one, you are not required to divulge every like sin you've committed, especially if you've moved on and made tawbah, right? But if something will affect the relationship, you should say it. There's a famous story actually of a classical scholar who, a young religious pious man, came to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage, and he asked him like, "What are your flaws?" And he was someone who was very honest, right? Because he was like, oh, honesty, integrity, etc. So he was like, well, I'm quick to anger. Sometimes I'm stingy, and sometimes I'm forgetful. Sometimes I'm lazy. He just went on and on and on and on. And very famously, this comes in books of tafsir. The guy looked at him and said, "Wallahi, if Shaitan's daughter was gonna marry you, I would tell her no, right? Because you are the worst person I've ever come across. Piece of advice: next house you go to seek marriage, don't say all this stuff, right? So you're not obligated to mention every single flaw that you have, but if you're in a position to advise someone about marriage, and they're asking about someone who you know, deep down inside, they're not going to be a good match, speak up, right? And the last thing I'll mention is before putting it over is the final step in this three-step process is istikhara. And the famous companion, Jabir ibn Abdullah, this comes in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, rigorously authentic hadith. The Prophet says that كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يعلمنا الاستخارة في الأمور كلها. The Prophet would teach us istikhara, the words of the istikhara, كما يعلمنا سورة من القرآن. Like he would teach us a chapter of the Quran. Just like the Hufadh here can attest to, when they're with their teachers and they recited every ayah, word by word, ayah by ayah, their teachers listened, they corrected, they repeated, right? The same way istikhara was taught this way. So a lot of young people come to me and say, can we use my phone for istikhara? Can I read the dua off? You can do that. There's nothing wrong with that. There's something really powerful though about memorizing the dua. Because the Prophet said that he taught this dua like he taught a surah of the Quran. He made his Sahaba memorize it. But as you said before, memorizing it allows you to internalize the meaning. So if you allow me, very quickly, I wanted to go through each line of it to just explain how powerful this dua is. Because it sets in motion what our perspective should be. Allah teaches us to say, Allahumma, O Allah, inni astakhiruka bi'ilmik. That I seek good from your knowledge. وَأَسْتَقْدِرُكَ, and I seek power biqudratik, from your strength. وَأَسْأَلُكَ, and I ask you min fadlika al-azim, from your great blessings. Why? فَإِنَّكَ تَقْدِرُ, because you, Allah, you indeed have ability and power. وَلَا أَقْدِرُ, and I don't have ability and power. You're leaving it in His hands. وَتَعْلَمْ وَلَا أَعْلَمْ, and you know, and I don't know. وَأَنْتَ عَلَّامُ الْغُيُوبِ, and you are the one who knows the unseen. Allahumma, O Allah, in kunta ta'lamu anna hadha al-amr, that if you know this matter is good for me, and there's two opinions here, either you could say it out loud, or you could think about the person that you want to marry. If you know that this situation is khayrun li, is good for me, fi dini wa ma'ashi, for my religion and for my life, my worldly affairs, wa aqibati amri, in my afterlife, faqdirhu li, then decide this for me, wa yassirhu li, and make this easy for me, thumma barik li fi, then bless me in this endeavor, وإن كنت تعلم أن هذا الأمر, but if you know that this matter is شر لي, is bad for me ultimately, is bad for me, في ديني, in my religion, ومعاشي, in my life, وعاقبة أمري, in my hereafter, فاصرفه عني, then turn it away from me, واصرفني عنه, and turn me away from it. Right? How many times has something not worked out but you're still pining over it? Right? So turn it away from me and also turn me away from it. And the last part's really powerful. He ends by saying that ثُمَّ أُرَضِّنِي بِهِ, that make me content with your decision. Make me happy with your decision. And again, the word istikhara means to seek good, to seek barakah. And as you said, it's not necessary to pray it every night, but that is the exact advice I give to everyone who comes into my office. Do it regularly. Do as much as you can. Because the more you do it, the more confidence it engenders and instills in your decision. And last thing I'll say is, what are you waiting for after the istikhara? Because we said this is the third of a three-step process. Some people assume that you have to do it at night. You don't have to. You can do it whenever you want. But do it regularly. It's possible you may see a dream, but most people don't see dreams. It's possible you may have a feeling after praying it. Most people don't even have that. But the real secret of the istikhara is, if you pray it sincerely, then the door towards what is better for you will start to open up. And the door what's not meant for you will begin to naturally, organically close. Then some people ask the question, well then, what was the point of the istikhara? If those doors are opening and closing, why do it? But how many of y'all have had a friend who's going down a very self-destructive path? Like, you see the train wreck a mile away, but they don't see it. They miss every red flag. They miss every, they're just not seeing it for what it is because they've got blinders on. Right? What istikhara does, the barakah of it, the blessing of it, allows you to see those doors opening in a way that you wouldn't have seen it had you not done the istikhara. And it allows you to see doors closing in a way that you would not have seen them had you not done the istikhara. The istikhara makes you more privy to these doors opening and closing. So that gives a generic kind of framework of the sunnah of making decisions.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a lot to add in terms of
Just to kind of
yeah.
Because I know a lot of people have the fear of how do I know if it's a right or wrong decision?
Yeah.
That's what I want to talk about, just to seal all of this up. From a spiritual perspective, Allah has written whatever decision that you make and actually happens, that is what's meant to happen. We have to have the core belief that whatever happens is good for me from Allah's perspective. So what that means is, if you get married and you end up getting a divorce, that is good for you. That was what's good for you on a spiritual level. You might not see it, right? So I want to start with, on the spiritual level, the umbrella is, no matter what happens, it's good for you. But now we go sit on a practical level. What can we do to make sure we don't get into chaotic situations? So how to know if it's a right or wrong decision? I like to reframe it to more of, is it a good or bad decision? Because right and wrong, it's a little nuanced, but we won't know what's right and wrong ultimately. Allah knows that, but we do know we can make good or a bad decision based off of the information of what we have right now. So, for example, if I make a decision to go to Chick-fil-A versus eating a salad, is that the right or wrong decision? Or is it just a bad decision or a good versus a good decision? It's not right or wrong, right? It's just more of a decision. There's no right, there's no moral attachment to that. It's just more of a good or bad decision. So that's how I want you to think of it. It's more of is it a good decision for me in this moment, or is it a bad decision? So the way I like to generally say, if it's a good decision, you have done your part to seek the knowledge. You have asked the knowledgeable people around you. You've consulted someone. You've thought about it. You're not just rushing to make a decision. You're not I need to do this now before they leave me, and all this extra. You feel grounded. Feels like a good decision. You've thought about it, you're detached from the outcome. You're like, okay, Allah knows what's best, but this is what I'm gonna do. You feel secure, you feel grounded, you're nervous, and you're excited. That's all part of it. But main thing is you're more grounded. It just feels good, but you're not making impulsive decisions. Now, what I would describe as a bad decision, and I usually see this often, is when I see a girl who gets excited about someone and she's only excited about the wedding. And she's only excited about like the next month. And I'm like, girl, have you thought about like maybe he doesn't have income? Like like none of that has been thought about. She's just like, I'm finally getting married and I get to have the wedding of my dreams. That unfortunately is can lead to, if you're not thinking about what's after the nice parts, the parts where you're gonna have to live with a whole nother human and all of that. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I make a very unproductive productive comment?
Yeah.
Just because you said this, I for all the guys here, just as a fair warning, I wish someone told me this beforehand, but I didn't realize that they're like what centerpiece was going to go on every table was actually something that needed to be discussed. Not only that, but is it something that needs to be discussed like ad nauseum for like weeks at a time? Also, I didn't realize that there's a right and wrong answer to that question. And so what you're saying is exactly right. Some of these girls have been like planning the wedding for a real long time. Let them have it, all right? Like just go along with the process, all right? And it'll be smooth sailing.
Right. Yeah. So another thing that I would say is more of a bad decision. If you feel like you experience a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and it's very intense high and lows throughout these 90 days, and you're like, it's a roller coaster. It is not healthy. There's something happening that needs to be looked into, right? So with all of this, I think what comes down to if it's a good decision is, first of all, like check in with your gut feeling. And your gut feeling is, when I first ask you the question, do you want to do this or not? What is the first answer that comes up? Like right away. And then usually there's a lot of fears and thoughts that come afterwards, and we can answer that if you talk to someone like, oh, I think it's a yes, but I have these fears. And then you talk it through. I would say a bad decision is you just make it and you don't talk to anyone, and you're just like, all right, this is it. Like it's just something you have to. The hardest thing about teaching this class is there's so many like ways of how things work out that you kind of have to learn as you go through it. And so inshallah, the intention of this whole class is what I want you to get out of this is to do your best, to be resourceful and like challenge the status quo. Just because something's happening that people tell you this is how it should be, does it feel good? Does it feel true? And if it doesn't, then what is more aligned Islamically? Islamically, as in, like if I'm making a decision and it feels bad and everyone around me is telling me that it's bad, maybe that's a sign that you're maybe making a wrong decision, like a bad decision. But ultimately, to know if the reason we're so afraid of committing is we're afraid of what's going to happen in the future, like how we're going to handle it, how we're going to feel. So if we just knew that no matter what happens, Allah will take care of it, and you'll do whatever it takes to make sure you'll take care of it, it's all good. And even if some things were to end, that was still good for you. And deciding ahead of time, the worst thing that could happen is a divorce, and you will decide to handle it with grace. And that's it. It's really that simple. The brain is so afraid of uncertainty, and all the uncertainty is what you can answer is like, if something wrong were to happen, I will handle it the best that I can. That's it. More than that, you can't control. You cannot control how the other person's going to react, how they're going to change. A deal breaker could come up. They could, all of that. Then we'll deal with it when the time comes. But we cannot focus on that now, because then no one's ever going to get married. It's too intense to think about, to stress about the future like that. So it is a little bit of a leap of faith, which is why there's some nerves when it comes to actually making a decision. But ultimately, when you have that strong, grounded gut feeling of like, I think I'm in, then trust yourself and proceed with the grace of Allah, inshallah. And I think we should leave some room for Q&A, right? So
Yeah. We typically give more time for Q&A. We apologize for
Did you have any
Everything,
thoughts on
everything she
that?
said was valuable. I apologize for my ranting. But we have the form up, or what?
Yeah, we can make it like 10 minutes maybe.
Okay,
Just
10
to
minutes.
see it. So the link is tinyurl/SB class QA. So that's Sacred Bonds class QA. In case you can't get that. tinyurl SB class QA.
Yeah, I feel like we go on rants sometimes.
No, I do.
No, I do too.
Can I just say something again? It's totally random, completely unrelated to this topic, but I feel like as the Imam of the Masjid, I reserve the right to pass completely random, unrelated fatwas when I feel I need to. There's a sister here who's had the audacity to come into this musalla, this sacred place, wearing a UTA shirt, which feels like it should be haram. May Allah guide her to the truth.
Good, you're scaring some
I
people.
know.
I was like,
Everyone
oh,
here
God,
was
what
like,
is
what is about to happen?
Yep, it's just another joke from your Evan.
Yeah.
If you can turn around and.
It's, yeah. It's funny, you know, I forget, like, not everyone, like, knows my humor.
Yeah, some people are new here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So,
What's going on?
there was a group of sisters who were like walking like on campus at DI, and I didn't realize that they were not UT students. And I kind of just went up to them and like, hey, stop having fun, in a typical kind of fashion. Like I do that, I do it all the time. I come back into the sisters, I'm like, hey, are you guys having fun here? That's haram, and everyone laughs and rolls their eyes, and I go on my way. But I said that to them, and they legit got freaked out. Like, who's this bearded random stranger? Who just told us not to have fun and then walked away. And yeah, I saw them a few times afterwards too, and they just did not. They were like, stay away from this freak. So I'm sorry if people don't. They're your first time here. I tend
Sorry
to.
for being awkward.
Yes, sorry for
Or did
being
you want to?
Yeah, sorry.
But Rami, you had a question?
Yeah, I think like I had a question like last week, and I kind
Yeah,
of
please,
wondered
please.
through it, but like you said something today that was interesting. You're saying that okay, let's say you had common interests, but 5 years from now, those common interests are no longer common, right? But are you okay with the person that you're left with, right? Are they a good person? Do they have good character? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guess my question then is that then how do you choose? You know, like there's so many options, right? In that sense, and how do you filter, right?
Yeah. So your question is coming from a fear of like there is a wrong decision,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
What if we took that away and you just decided like I like this person because of like this core thing, okay? And then how do you know if that's right or wrong? Like what
Well,
comes
you're
up when I
saying
ask
good
you
or
that?
bad, right?
Huh?
You're saying good or bad. You should
Yeah, good or bad. Sorry, yeah. So tell me what happens if you were to just decide, all right, I chose someone with what I know right now in this current moment. They seem like a good person, and 5 years down the line, all the hiking stuff went away, and I'm just left with she had a whole different passion, and you're a different passion. What's the problem with that? What are you afraid of?
I mean, there could be trivial things, but I guess I'm more concerned about like change, like significant change, where it's like I don't know this person anymore.
So in a way, like what? Like if we're talking like her whole hobbies changed, or are we talking about her core like her ethical manners have changed?
Yeah.
That's different. No, I'm not
That's
talking
what
about
I'm
that.
talking about. I'm
Right.
not talking about her hobbies. I'm talking about that stuff's fine.
Yes, yes.
Sure,
yes.
you can do knitting. You can do hiking. That's fine.
Right.
And I'm talking about like.
Yeah. So usually if you meet someone with a good heart, it's very hard for them to flip to a complete different psychopath in 5 years, right? That's very rare, right?
And I would also add to that our deen is built in a way that, like, you've got an option available to you if that should happen,
Right.
right? Like, and that's not a failure on your part. Like, that's just something you should, like, hold your head up high and be proud of. That in the moment, I married this person because all signs are pointing towards a positive trajectory in a particular way. Like, and it doesn't happen that people have a midlife crisis and freak out and just want to go in a totally different direction. Yeah, it does. But then our deen also tells us what to do in that situation too.
Yeah, and
You know?
I what I'm sensing from your question is like what's gonna happen. Like if they just change or something happens, you are going to have the confidence to figure out how to navigate that. You talk to them and say, hey, I noticed you're acting this way instead of, you know, I thought you were more, you know, more closer to the deen, now you're away from it. Like what happened? And you talk through, and there's counseling, there's coaching. Usually that gets resolved, right? And I think I want to build your confidence and like I can handle it. Like you can handle whatever change comes up. And I think that's what you're kind of afraid of is like, what if she just changes? It's like, yeah, she will. There's gonna be a lot of fears and thoughts and things that come up because she's a whole human being, you're a whole human being, and egos are gonna clash, and you're gonna have to have those really uncomfortable conversations, and you can't handle it. Now there will come a point where you can't handle it, and then there's divorce. But like, yeah. But no matter what,
Yeah, you can handle that too.
yeah,
Like,
you can
that's-
handle. It's all handled.
Yeah.
Everything is. I know the society has made it seem like it's all a disaster if something goes wrong, but it's not. I've seen very really gracious, like calm divorces, separations that are very like civilized, and nothing has gone wrong, right? Yeah.
If I could just very briefly do story time again.
Yeah.
You know, in the community I served in previously, there was a case which was, I've never seen a case like this before or afterwards. There was a couple that was married for many, many years. They had 2 kids. Their kids are students of mine. The parents went to Hajj. While the parents were at Hajj, those 2 kids were with the grandparents, and they were coming to the masjid every day because we were doing a summer program at the masjid. So they went as a married couple. They went to Hajj. The guy ended up having a midlife crisis at Hajj in Ihram, in one of like the most blessed days of like, you know, the entire trip. They were in the bus. It was hot. It was like 6 hours, you know, like spent on the way or whatever. He just turns around and just like gets, in a moment of frustration, just divorces his wife. Says, we're done. And to her, it came out of the blue.
I've seen that so many times.
Yeah. Like you talk about like a mid, like usually I've seen midlife crisis, like he buys a Harley Davidson or whatever, but he just straight up was like at Hajj, was like, we're done. They traveled back to America divorced, right? And subhanAllah, you know, much of my role in that, those people's lives were picking up the pieces after it was all done. But I can tell you with this case and also another case much more closer to my life and kind of my family, there was a case of a married couple. They were married for 10 years, 2 kids. The wife got married to this person when she was 17 years old. Like that's all she ever knew, right? I can tell you with full confidence now that both of those cases as divorced people, like they are the best versions of themselves now. They're killing it. They're killing it. I mean, it's as though that both of them needed to get rid of their husbands to like really flower.
Yes.
And become amazing people. Now their kids are looking to come to UT, right? Because of whatever. So it's not UT. No, I'm kidding. Not freaking Arlington. All right.
Yeah. Oh,
Even
yeah,
though
the
they're
question.
from there. So
Yeah, I don't mind going more than 10 minutes. Are people okay? If you can leave if you want to. I'm fine.
yeah. Yeah, please.
How do you, okay, so we talked about like prompts on how to be open with your communication and be transparent with that. Do you also have any suggested ways or prompts on how to respectfully say no to somebody? So obviously you're not going to sit there and say, no, you're ugly, sorry. But like, what are some more like suggested ways or ideas or, you know,
Yeah. No, I got
more
you.
specific things about, you know, saying no or, you know, politely rejecting somebody?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, so you can say the words, and you can even Google this. Really, there's a lot of people who have already responses, but you can say, "Listen, I really thought about this, and I made istikhara, and it just feels like it's not a good fit at this time, and I really appreciate your time for getting to know each other, and I just need to trust my gut on this, and I wish you the best of your journey, and may Allah bless you." Right? You can't argue with istikhara answers. Like you can't be like, no, you shouldn't, like, you know, you can say that.
ChatGPT. You want to tackle some of these?
Just a follow-up, and how would you, is it appropriate to ask for feedback?
Yeah, you can say, but we can't depend on it, but like you can say, is there something in specific that, you know, that you can tell me that I can work on? that I can work on. Not necessarily like, why would you say that? More of
Yeah.
like, what can I do to work on so I can improve for the next person? And some people are usually open for that. And if people don't like you because of your physical appearance, usually people don't say that. But let's just not assume that. You know.
Should you ever be making dua for a specific person? I've heard that you can't.
So this was an attachment issue here. We don't make. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna say it like from a physical
Go ahead,
but I mean it like, Ya Allah, if this is good for me, make this happen. We don't say, Ya Allah, make this person good for me.
Yeah.
Right? That's more of detachment versus attached to.
Yeah.
So that's kind of
Yeah.
answers that question.
Bars.
Yeah.
All right. Is it a bad decision to marry someone if you think they have what you want, but they are the first person you have seriously considered for marriage?
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
If it feels like a good fit and you have that good feeling,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. It's good for you.
Should you? What should you? Another section. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, it's repeated.
Yeah, it's repeated. What should you do if you talk to someone and both want to get married, but want to get married in a year because of financial stability and finishing school and work? Should you keep talking to them in this year?
I would keep a distance. I would have very strong boundaries because, like I said, infatuation really gets to you, and it does lead to things that you can't control. This is a hard one, right? Like, I do see a lot of cases where they meet at freshman year and they're not ready until senior year. So you kind of have to judge your character, set the boundaries you need to judge, or set the boundaries you need to set, and just act accordingly from
Yeah.
there. We're all adults here. Like, you have to kind of know yourself and know where to draw the line.
Yeah. In a nutshell, do not. Don't talk to them if you're not ready.
If you're not ready. Yeah.
Are there inappropriate questions to ask to see if we're compatible? If so, can you give examples?
Yeah. You want to ask or an answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I would say anything related to intimacy, physical intimacy, is just not appropriate to ask. You don't need to be asking that, like, in the 90 days. That's something that, if there's like a big concern that you have on your mind and you're like, I don't know, in some way, ask it in the most respectful way that you can, but do not, you guys know at this point what's respectful and what's not respectful. But I've seen women tell me that, like, men just straight up ask, hey, are you into this? Like, whatever it is. It's like, sorry, like, get away from me. Right, so let's just not do that, right? Yes. Yeah.
Shouldn't you also not ask anything about their past, like their past sins or past, I don't know, relationships, or just general questions in that territory?
What from a fiqh perspective, what's your
Yeah, it's best not to. I mean, I think the way I'd phrase it is there anything I should be worried about, right? So if it's, if past relationships resulted in like children or an STD, like these are things that will affect the current relationship. You know what I mean? But you can't like ask, like, have you done this? Yeah, don't ask that.
Yeah, and if someone does ask that, you don't have to answer
Yeah,
that.
you don't answer.
And I like, you can just ask how if they were in a previous relationship, why did it end? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
It's just so you can get an idea of their.
This is a good question. I have a fear of the fact that everything is a test from Allah. So if I found someone I really like and they also want to get married, I feel rushed, but because I'm scared of it being a test and everything going wrong.
This sounds like more of like your idea of who Allah is, of like, you have this idea that a test is going to be bad, that that everything you're gonna be tested on is like negative and it's gonna crush you or something like that, which is why it's causing you your fear. But if we had the foundation that Allah is the most, like, He loves you deeply and everything that He's giving you is for you, not against you. A test is always for you, never against you. If you had that core belief, every test you come through is like, oh yeah, this is a good test. Like, I'm here. Like, Ya Allah, give me the whatever I need to pass it. We don't have to be afraid of it. We just ask Allah because we know He's coming from Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Al-Wadud, that He is not going to crush you. And subhanAllah, we do have this kind of image of Allah as like this being that's here to just punish us all the time. You're gonna have feel really afraid with every circumstance that comes your way.
Mm.
What-
Yeah, yeah. Next one is how much should mental health struggles be discussed before getting married?
I wouldn't be ashamed of it. Like, let's say you're going through depression, you know, you can just say casually, like, listen, I'm going through this depression thing that I'm owning. Like, I'm trying my best to manage, and I'm taking control. And I think it's something to mention. There's no problem with that. You don't have to like make it a big identity thing, but just more of like, I'm going through this thing.
This is an interesting one.
Mm.
The concept that the guy needs to like the girl more, is that true?
I've heard this a lot. No, it's not. It's just, I think it's important for the man to pursue and be the one to pursue. Like more, I don't know. I don't think so.
I know it's not correct, but I feel like starting to talk to the other gender more, even for marriage, will take away a part of my purity. How do I change my way of thinking?
Yeah. That goes back to what we were talking about, right? Like growing up thinking that it's wrong to talk to the other person, that you're somehow breaking a rule for talking to the other person.
That's like the first thing we discussed upstairs.
Yeah. So it makes sense why you're thinking that way, right? It makes sense why it feels like it's haram to keep getting to know people, but it's just more of a belief. It's more of like a rewiring of you think every time you talk to someone you feel that guilt. Oh, it's telling you, oh, I'm doing something wrong, but you're not. You know?
And there's like authentic, detailed narrations about Sahaba pursuing each other for marriage.
Yeah.
The case of like Barira and Mulith, right? One loved the other one hated the other person. But she kept pursuing, and the Prophet commented on this. Isn't it amazing how much one loves the other, but the other one hates the other person? So this is just to say that this pursuit of marriage was something that was pursued by people who were more pure than us. They were more religious than us. They were closer to revelation than us, and they found it worthwhile to do this. And so, by doing this, we don't taint ourselves. Okay, this is speaking on the flipping to a psychopath in 5 years. That's all I've seen growing up. So I'm scared of commitment for that happening. I've seen men talk so nice before the marriage, then they get the girl, then they change.
Yeah. So this is a problem with someone who's infatuated and have not done their research. And when you notice couples where they say, oh, like he was so nice in the beginning, this girl has not done her work. I've talked to so many of them that they don't have they don't have, first of all, the wisdom or the knowledge of like what's love bombing, what's like intense, like if a man even gives her 1 inch of attention, that's it. Like, oh, like I'm in. Like,
what is love bomb?
Oh, sorry. Did you know that one? No. Oh, you know? Okay. So this is like a method that narcissists usually use, is intense affection in the beginning. Like, hey, you're so beautiful, you're so this. Like, they try to win over their love of the woman or even it happens both directions, by the way, in a way where they make them feel so amazing, where the person falls in love. Like, because they've made them feel so good. And that's not, they're doing it in a manipulative way to fall for them, so that, and then, you know, a year later you can see that's not them. But if we had the knowledge to understand what is narcissism, what are the tactics, what are all this, you can weed all of that out. And this is why in the very beginning, I make sure you work on yourself so that you're understanding that your self-image is very important, because if you have a low self-image and someone compliments you like that, you're gonna snatch that up like sponge. You're gonna inhale all of that, and you're gonna be like, wow, like this is it. But versus someone who's filled and sufficient and complete on their own, they don't take that. Like, why are you complimenting me? You just met me. Like, you don't fall for that stuff.
Yeah.
So these are the cases where this ends up being a psychopath in 5 years, because they haven't done that work.
Any questions?
Thoughts on that? Yeah. Yes.
I guess, how do you measure emotional maturity in someone? Because you can see it through their actions, but let's say how many never gotten any kind of coach. How do you measure that?
So whatever thing you're concerned about their maturity specifically, you would ask that. Like, because my husband's 1 year younger than me, so I was like, oh, he's so immature. Like, so I would bring up, hey, I'm worried that you might be too immature for me. Like, here's what I'm worried about. And you literally list out your specific doubt. So that you have some room to, and see how the way you communicate, see if he's mature. Like, how does he answer that? Does he dismiss you and say, oh, and that's not a big deal? Or does he kind of talk about that? You know, that's a way to gauge.
My sister is a month older than her husband. So her line is always like, you'll know when you're older. When you're my age, you'll figure it out. This is a really good one. Can you elaborate more on how to identify early signs of narcissistic characteristics?
That is a whole lecture in and of itself, but like, you know, I promise when you just Google it, it shows everything. And that there's a lot more like experts on narcissism that they can explain much more. So that's why I think I signed this like either class 1 or class 2, where I need you to do your research on what red flags are. And part of it is narcissism, part of it is understanding like how do people fall into toxic relationships. And just reading about it will help you get the awareness that you need.
Is it normal to feel like someone is out of your comfort zone? Should you take this as a sign? Both of your values and goals in life are the same, and you like their character, but your personalities and your daily routines are so different.
I mean, if you can click with your person, like I don't know what the comfort zone mean in this case, but if you don't click with this person, personality-wise, that's gonna be an issue. Because I want you to think of, you're gonna spend every day with this person, and if you feel repulsed by them, by their personality, by the way they talk, by the way, like, if there's someone who's like just casually, just always like sarcastic or humorous, and you find that really annoying, that's not a good match, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you get over the feeling of ungratefulness when you say no to a guy? Especially if you've been praying for a spouse regularly, how do you know this isn't just a blessing and you just can't see it?
Yeah, I noticed that in women too, is that it's like, because we're told that we're too picky and you need to just settle with the next one, so it feels like when you say no, that you're letting go of a blessing. I want you to think of it as like, this is just a decision I'm making. Allah is not going to punish me for like, I asked Ya Allah, like, this doesn't feel good, and I'm making the decision based off of, like, after that prayer, and trusting that Allah is not going to cut you off because of a decision you made. And this goes back to scarcity, right? Like, Allah's going to, like, cut me off, and, like, this is it, this is the only, and you know, Allah's never going to send me again because I keep saying no. It's like, would you think of that when it comes to job hunting? Would you, if you said no to McDonald's and Starbucks and, or that's the bad ones, but like all the retail stores, does that mean like you shouldn't ever have a job? No, it's just a decision you've made that this is not what I'm looking for. So Allah, send me what I'm looking for, no matter how long it takes. I don't know when the when is, but let me just send it to me. And alhamdulillah for giving me these opportunities to learn, and kind of having more hope in Allah that He doesn't just cut you off after these things.
Next one is, after months of talking, I'm scared of prolonging the talking and shaitan coming in the middle, but realistically I don't think we can get married until next year. My advice would be, if that is honestly the case, then talk about it with the person. Have an honest conversation about when you can realistically pursue marriage, when you can involve parents, when you can actually do the nikah. In some cases, it may be earlier than you think. If it is taking a year for y'all to take that step, then the both of you need to do the adult, mature, Islamically responsible thing and stop talking to each other casually. And revisit this after, once both of you are ready. That is the only solution. There's no in between. There's no in between, all right? There's no like, okay, we can't get married now. Let's keep talking though, because I don't want this feeling to end. Let's see where this goes. I'll tell you, it only goes one direction. It goes to Jahannam. All right, that's it.
This is it.
Yeah. No, it's real talk.
Yeah.
There's no, the point of talking to someone for marriage is to make a decision. To make a decision. You're not there to flirt. You're not there to see like, what more can I find out about this person? It doesn't matter. It's not gonna help you make a decision about marriage. Like you knowing one more like factoid about, today I found out they like blue. You know, like that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a good point on like, how much do I need to know in order to commit?
Yeah.
you just need to know what you need, like the basics of how does this person act? Is this good enough for me? You don't need to know more details. And so, yeah.
With the earlier keep coming in.
Just going down.
Yeah. With the earlier question, I'm also scared of settling because the first person I really talk to and want to get married to, so I don't know, do I like them or I like that this is the first person who likes me back?
Yeah, so I'll answer this very simply. I don't know what's going on with my voice, but settling is the definition of settling is I don't know if I'm going to find anything else, so let me just go with this. I don't know if it's not really what I'm looking for, but let me just go with this. Okay, if your reason is that, then that's settling. But if you feel good and it feels like a good option, then that's not settling, right? Then there's going to be thoughts of like, oh, but what if there's better out there? Sorry, excuse my voice, but if there's something better out there, then those are just thoughts that we have to work on. It's not necessarily settling. So it's just whatever your reason is if it's coming from like I guess I'll do this just because, and then a fear-based reason, that's more of settling.
I'll talk about these two together. First one says, how do I tell my very desi parents I like someone and we started talking on Instagram without them getting suspicious of me doing something wrong or being like, quote, is this why you have a phone? You talk to boys even though I've kept everything really respectful. So a few thoughts about this. I would never, ever, ever advocate lying to your parents or lying in general. It's not a good quality trait. It's not a good thing to do. However, we do find several interesting examples from the stories of the prophets where if there was a larger objective to be achieved, then there are strategic ways to frame things to make sure that you don't like torpedo the entire situation. Okay? What I mean by that is, for example, like Ibrahim alayhi salam, he knew his mission was to smash the idols. But his own family would be the first people to get in the way of that. So what did he say to his people? Inni saqim, I'm sick. So to prevent him from going to the festival, which allowed him to go smash the idols. What he actually meant was, I'm sick of your shirk. I'm sick and tired of your kufr. Right? So he said something but meant something else. Technically he didn't lie. So in this situation, look, if you've already spoken to someone, it's been respectful, you've not crossed any red lines, and you legitimately want to marry them, and you know your parents best, then if you tell them that this was the circumstance under which you met them, and you anticipate them freaking out, then fiqh-wise, you're not obligated to tell them every single detail of like every passing thought you have, right? So like you're not obligated to tell like your parents about every crush and every like just, you know. So if they ask you, you can keep it generic. You can keep it generic that like, you know, we have shared interests, and sometimes, you know, in social gatherings you meet people, and of course if they keep pressing, then it's up to you to loop in someone who is older and respectful. Maybe they can kind of like help either navigate the conversation with your parents, or you can then talk to an older, respectful person, be it an older member of the community, an imam and whatnot, talk to them about your situation. So then you can tell your parents that we met in the context of, you know, the imam was there and we talked, right? That's actually a lot, you know, much more acceptable in terms of like traditional parents.
Is it necessary? Like, is it a requirement to do that?
To do what?
To involve the parents when they ask you? Like, because your question is, do I have to tell them?
You don't have to tell them, but this is assuming that they ask you. If they ask you, then there are strategic ways to tell them what they need to know without lying. This is what I'm saying. But if they don't ask you, no, you don't have to tell them. You can just say, I met someone in my social circle. And that's fine, because that person isn't here. Next question, the more fiqh thing as well, is texting and FaceTiming privately khalwa, fiqh-wise and advice-wise. So only physical gatherings are considered to be khalwa technically, because the whole reason khalwa is haram is because it could lead to zina. Zina is not done virtually. However, this is again a moment where I would sort of interject beyond the fiqh, which is advice. I wouldn't FaceTime. I think conversations are much more respectful if they're like on the phone. With FaceTime, just because of like, you know, the added personal, sort of more intimate layer or element of it, and just the kind of way we do it, you know, like the angles, and it's just a weird. It's not advisable.
So what about like during the day, and like we're just trying to get to know someone?
Yeah, again, I think there's a difference between kind of like doing a Zoom meeting like in your office or something, like where the laptop's like on the table and you're just kind of like, you're just talking, versus like, you know, yeah, exactly, like
Yeah, I
yeah,
get you.
you're kind of reclining like, you know, in your dorm, you're just like, hey, what's up? How's your day been? You know, kind of like you're like, you know, just under a shirt, you just that's not
Yeah.
good. All right.
Yes.
This is completely unrelated to the other
Yeah.
questions, but I've read that like, the American divorce rate is around 50%. Do you guys have any idea what it is for like American Muslims?
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a claim that's made that Muslim divorces are creeping up close to the national average. To be quite honest with you, I think those numbers are highly exaggerated. I don't think it's that bad, but there is an uptick in divorce in the community for sure, and it's becoming a lot more common than we're used to. And do I have any hard numbers? I don't, unfortunately. Any resources on trying to find narcissism and more info on love bombing?
Yeah. So there's a Dr. Ramani on YouTube. She's an expert in narcissism. I recommend all her videos. So that's one I would recommend. If you just even YouTube narcissism, there's a lot of experts that talk about it.
What was her name?
Dr. Ramani, Ramani. Yeah.
Non-Muslim?
Non-Muslim. She's not Muslim. Yeah. Yes.
As a man, what's a good benchmark to look at in your life to even consider you being ready to, okay, take on like these 90-day periods? Like, where should I be looking at myself financially, and where should I be looking at myself spiritually to make a decision that, okay, I'm going to approach a woman and ask if they want to talk about things?
Yeah, I mean, if you're financially, if you feel like you can support another person, if you feel like, yeah, I can do that, even if it's not like high, but like you can. And then spiritually, it's just more of like, it's not really a solid answer there, but how you feel. Like if you feel like, okay, I feel like I'm spiritually ready, like I can take care of another person, I'm not like emotionally attached to this certain outcome. That's a sign of maturity and spiritual maturity, of like whatever happens, whatever Allah's timing is, I'm like, I'll accept, but let me do what I can. Let me like go out there and approach, and if it doesn't work, alhamdulillah, let me move on to someone else. That's a sign of spiritual maturity, you know?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
What you said. Next is a good question. Did that satisfy?
Yeah.
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 Very good. How do you reject arranged marriages in the Islamic way? Yeah, you say no. No, but I've dealt with this a lot. For the past like 2-3 months, I am dealing with 2-3 cases around the community where the young person is being basically forced into marriage by their parents. In a situation like that where your parents are being unreasonable, a few pieces of advice. Number one, if you're talking to them on your own without anyone's help, the key to that is like addressing the fear behind what they're saying and not exactly what they're saying, right? Like we talked about this before. Like if you want to marry someone of like a different race, right, and they reject that, the solution is not to point out how racist they're being. The solution is to really get at the core of like why this gives them anxiety, right? The fact that they're not able to relate to that person. So you have to like address that to them, right? And so I think if you're talking to them by yourself, I would highlight the fact that like, you know, the fact that you and this person don't have understanding, there's no shared interest, you end up gonna be like oppressing this person in marriage, and that's not a place that you want to be in. If that doesn't work, typically what helps is enlisting the help of like local scholarship and older people in the community. Typically parents when that occurs, they do feel a sense of like almost embarrassment, like someone else knows that we're forcing our young son or daughter to do this, and often it will get them to reconsider because of social pressure. But the third advice I'll say, and we kind of touched upon this when you said we can't judge the reasons why people end up getting married and the circumstances that they're in. There is one or two cases where I personally have dealt with where we tried every intervention possible. We tried intervention from like older siblings of the parents. We tried intervention from like local scholars that they respected. We tried intervention from like people, like other scholars they didn't know but were very convincing, like members of the community. Nothing budged. And they were adamant about, if you don't do this, then you and I are done. And ultimately, I told the person, I was like, you will need to make a decision that, it's not ideal, but can you see a married life with this person? Could you see attraction growing? Could you see living a shared life? And you have to weigh that against the value that you put on the relationship you currently have with your parents, right? If you absolutely cannot see yourself marrying this person, and you know for a fact you're going to oppress them in marriage, you're not going to give them their rights, you're going to be miserable and unhappy, right? Then this may be a situation where you don't put yourself in this situation, but what you lose is relationship with your parents. But you have to be prepared to lose that.
I do think it's temporary though, right? Would you say they come around eventually? The parents?
They can.
Yeah. Some
They can.
do, some don't. Yeah.
I've seen both.
Yeah.
I've seen both. I wouldn't I wouldn't cut off relationship with my parents with the assumption that they will come around. Not to say that people don't, but especially with like elderly parents, maybe they don't make it to the point where they come around. I've seen that too. There was a case of a very, very close family friend of ours growing up. The family was just amazing. Actually, like my parents would use their kids as examples of like, how come you're not more like them? How come you don't? Like, it was a picture perfect family, great parents. But the oldest daughter ended up like wanting to marry this person. I kid you not, they were from the same culture, same like tribe, same everything. But like they were from the other side of town, from like back home. Yeah. Like we joke about it, but they were serious. Like the father was the nicest guy in the world, but just something flipped in him. And he was like, no, never, over my dead body. They still got married. So the father shows up to the wedding, sat in the corner, didn't face anyone else, just sat looking at the corner, didn't welcome anyone, didn't talk to anyone, didn't give his blessings, just sat there. And subhanAllah, he ended up passing away, like right after the wedding. Right? And so, like whatever room there could have been for like reconciliation was just not available to them. And subhanAllah, this person that he was so adamantly against his daughter marrying, he ended up becoming the best son-in-law of that family. The most caring, the most like respectful. When that father passed away, when the father passed away, that son-in-law took it upon himself to support the whole family. The whole family. The widow, like the mother, right? Like says, I would not have survived if it wasn't for him. So you don't know. But you have to make a decision. Which one's more important to me, this relationship or my parents? And you have to pick. It's not easy. Oops, sorry.
Is to be in the car together, is that haram?
Oh, okay. I always struggle with this question because if you look at it from a purely like bare bones legal perspective, one could make the case that technically it's not khalwa. I still would never recommend it though. I would not recommend it.
Okay.
Wallahu a'lam. Yeah.
So don't make dua for a specific person. What about istikhara? So remember, what I said, the intention of istikhara is to detach, not to attach to a specific person. So when you say istikhara is, Ya Allah, if this person is good for me, then make it happen. If he's not good for me, then don't make it happen. It's not like what I mentioned, Ya Allah, please, if this person is bad for me, make it good for me, so that's attachment. That's the whole point of like what I was saying, is it's important not to like attach to this specific person when you're making dua, because Allah knows what's best for you, not you. I hope that whoever answers that, yeah.
So 2 last questions, inshallah. How do you identify a partner who is genuine and their level of faith? How do you know if someone is just playing up themselves in order to fit into your criteria for a partner?
When you are being real with yourself and you're actually being honest, you can easily tell when someone's not being honest. You can ask questions. I remember one time I was talking to someone before as I was looking for my spouse, and they would give me the exact answer that I'm looking for, and then I would elaborate, like, okay, like, what did you mean by that? And then they would kind of like come up with an answer on the spot, like, but you can tell. You know, you can tell they're trying to put on a show for me, so that I could like them. I wouldn't have known that if I was desperate and I'm like, I need to find someone, I would be like, yeah, this is good, like this is a good, like, I accept it. But if I was being genuine and I wasn't attached to any result, I could tell when someone's acting in a way that's not genuine.
If my parents are having some bigger problems or disagreements at home, how do I navigate that with my own search for a spouse? I feel like I can't get married if there are problems at home.
Yeah, those are 2 separate things, right? Like, because the problems at home are never going to end. And we're always going to have problems at home. So we have to either, seek the help that you need of like how to separate yourself from the problems at home so that it's not impacting you as much. And it's 2 separate things. So there's your family's problems, and then there's like, all right, I'm going to find how to build my own family so I can make my own healthy decisions. And may Allah make us among the healthy, open, beautiful relationships, inshallah, and give us the character of Rasulullah. And okay, any other thoughts, questions? No? Okay, good. That was a long one, so thank you.
Last class.
When is the last class is next week?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Inshallah.
yeah.